Hello, everyone. Really very happy to see all of you, and we are also very happy as Ukrainians that we were able to get to Singapore. It's not that easy an ordeal for us, which also kind of going to illustrate what we are going to talk about. So we want to talk about decolonizing knowledge from the perspective of our community, the Ukrainian community, but we also think that there are some things that we can share out to all those who also feel that they need to decolonize the knowledge or have work in that field. My name is Natalia Tymkiev. I'm a Ukrainian Wikipedian Antanana, and my co-presenter is Anton Protyuk, whom you all know because he is Wikipedian of the Year in one of the categories. In interest of time, because we have only 20 minutes, less 18, I'm going to go to what is colonization, and I'm actually going to talk about a part of it. I'm not going to talk about wars or, like physical destruction or something like that. Actually about languages. It's when colonization is also when the language of the empire or the language of somebody who is more powerful is actually replacing the language that is used locally or more locally. And that is an important thing for us, an important dimension. Why? This is a chronology of how the Ukrainian language was oppressed starting in 18th century. So decree by decree, the Russian Empire was limiting the usage of the Ukrainian language. So the books were not published, the teaching was not done in schools, everything else was published only in the Russian language, the laws and everything, and it was going like over centuries. And if the language is not producing books, is not producing textbooks, is not producing knowledge, and that knowledge is not recorded, that language is going extinct because there are no sources in that language. And everything in the sources that exist starting to begin being shown only from the perspective of the, the empire or the language in power, so to say. And it means, because Wikipedia really relies on written sources, as it is now, it also means that there are less written sources from the perspective, usually, of the colony, from the perspective of a less privileged country. That means that some things are an example that probably people are going to know more because Ukraine is relatively new in your news field, that, for example, Africa is a country, because you just don't want to go into too much details. You do not read a lot about the whole huge continent. And somehow it all in your mind is just like one country. You do not see the differences. The same was with the Russian Empire for us, because no one wanted to go into the details that the dancers that they painted were Ukrainian dancers. They were from the Russian Empire. That's how they went into the history. That's how he wrote it down, because he also didn't go into, oh, this is Ukrainian dancer, this is Bashkir dancers, this is some other dancers. It doesn't matter. Small people who do not write encyclopedias, who do not publish sources, they do not exist. They do not exist in a written world. The empires, and here no one calls Russian Federation the empire. It's more about mindset. The empires have a way and resources to create reliable sources, to create sources that are deemed reliable, and you can respect them from other scholars. Scholars talk with scholars. in different languages, but they use kind of the same level of understanding that you need to have the whole institution, you need to have high education, you need to have everything else, you need to have terminology in that language. And that also means that words and concepts and things are being presented from the point of view of the colonizers rather than colonized, because colonizers are going to write down what is important for you. If they colonize the country, they might not care about its traditions, its culture. They might care about its resources or things that you can get out of that country. That's it. They don't care about anything else. Kazimir Malevich was even mentioning and identifying as a painter that he is Ukrainian. Also, there were sources where he was saying that he is Polish and his family was Polish. But he went down even on Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is citing sources and Russia has way more resources to actually publish those sources, saying that this is Russian. So the Russian avant-garde, Kazimir Malevich is the one painter who Black Square is his famous one, famous piece, just in case that you don't know. So that's it. So it doesn't matter, and even on the English Wikipedia, from the perspective of those who are writing, because those sources are more cited, he's going to go into the intro as a Russian, and then somewhere down the line in his early life, it's going to be mentioned that he identified himself as a Ukrainian. It's very difficult for a Ukrainian community, for example, or for any other smaller community, to go and try to get the point across in huge English Wikipedia, where all these things are just going to be looked down at because they don't respect our sources, because a national newspaper of Ukraine for 45 million of people is, less known than BBC or CNN or something else that the Western world usually, or some other big powers, respect. And here I'm going to give floor to Anton.
Thank you. So I want to talk a bit about decolonizing, to talk about what we've tried to do, what we've achieved. And I have two examples here I want to talk about. And when I'm talking about, when I use the word we, I mean the Ukrainian Wikimedian community, and sometimes with the help of Wikimedia Ukraine. So the first example is about renaming articles about geographical locations, renaming articles about toponyms. It is important to build awareness among stakeholders who can impact how different places are mentioned in other reliable sources. Because Wikipedia doesn't set linguistic rules and norms, we depend on reliable sources like media, like research works, and to rename an article on English Wikipedia, for example, about a certain place. The most notable case is renaming the article about Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. To do it, we need to start with media, to start with other reliable sources, and then Wikipedia will follow, and that will create a virtuous cycle wherein other reliable sources follow Wikipedia, and this naming convention is even more established. But although we know that Wikipedia doesn't set linguistic rules and norms itself, other external stakeholders might not know that. So a big role for the community, for the Wikimedia community, is to explain that and to work with external stakeholders who can have impact on other sources. In Ukraine's case, there was a big campaign called Kyiv, not Kyiv, which I've just mentioned, and its goal was to change the spelling of Ukrainian, of the name of Ukrainian capital. And this campaign was driven by Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and by the civil society, by the civil sector, which worked to impact media outlets, to impact how different commercial companies such as I don't know, air flight providers and so on use this term. The role of the Ukrainian Wikimedian community here was to work with these organizations and explain the importance of working with other reliable sources before we can change something on Wikipedia. And of course, there was all this time there was an attempt to change the name on English Wikipedia. As you can see, it took almost 15 years to do that. The first discussion started in 2007, but it was only in 2020 when there was this critical mass of external reliable sources referring to Ukraine's capital as Kyiv in Ukrainian spelling, and it was only in 2020 when this renaming happened, in part because of this broader campaign to impact other reliable sources. And of course, we have still a lot of work to do. There are toponyms in English Wikipedia which are still reflected in Russian spelling, such as Chernobyl. There are of course, a lot of other language editions, such as French Wikipedia, where Kyiv is still spelled in the Russian spelling, so there is a lot of work to do, but there are also success stories here which we can reflect on. And the second example of decolonizing work I want to share is developing Crimean Tatar Wikipedia. So it is not only the Ukrainian language that has been suppressed by the Russian Empire. Crimean Tatars, which is an indigenous people in the Crimean Peninsula in Ukraine. Crimean Tatars have also been suppressed in some ways, even in a more cruel way than Ukrainians, along with many other ethnicities suppressed by the Russian Empire. And as a result, the Crimean Tatar language isn't as well developed, and Crimean Tatar Wikipedia exists, but it is much smaller than Ukrainian Wikipedia, and there is a lot of developing work to do. A few years ago, the Ukrainian government started wide work to invest in the development of the Crimean Tatar language, and we worked to make Wikipedia a part of that. So just to give an example, there was of the wider government's work, there has been developed a comprehensive strategy to develop, there has been created a comprehensive strategy to develop Crimean Tatar language in Ukraine, to do things like developing the alphabet, to increase the presence of the Crimean Tatar language on different digital platforms such as Google Translate, for example, or language learning platforms and so on. And we collaborated with in 2021, we collaborated with the Ministry of Reintegration of Occupied Territories in Ukraine, which was the agency responsible for this work, the agency responsible for supporting Crimea, which is currently temporarily occupied by Russia, and we worked with them to organize a campaign on Crimean Tatar Wikipedia. You can see how it looked like. The goal of the campaign was it was basically a month-long campaign marathon to create the most basic languages, the most basic articles on the most basic topics on the Crimean Tatar language edition. So, for example, before the marathon, Crimean Tatar Wikipedia worked articles on things like internet or forest or Crimean Tatar music, and we worked with volunteers to create articles on these most basic topics, and that was the short-term goal. The short-term goal was just to make Crimean Tatar Wikipedia a little bit better, and hopefully to prompt Crimean Tatar language users to use Crimean Tatar Wikipedia more and and not rely exclusively on other language editions such as Turkish or English or Russian or Ukrainian. But the more long-term goal was to give a push to the project's development and to raise awareness of the importance of developing Crimean Tatar Wikipedia. And it looks like we indeed came closer to achieving this long-term goal. Personally, I even think that this graph is a bit too good to be true, but we see a steep rise in the number of new articles created on Crimean Tatar Wikipedia after our marathon was conducted in 2021. Probably this growth is not only because of our campaign, but our campaign played a big role in bringing awareness to Crimean Tatar Wikipedia and prompting other people to join even after this specific campaign. So that's it. We had just a short presentation just to get a feeling, but we would like to hear any thoughts and any questions while we still have, I think, at least 4 to 5 minutes.
You need to go to the mic. Yeah, we need to use mics in order for the online participants, if they are, to be able to hear us.
This is so tall. Now, thank you, first of all, for your presentation. I wanted to ask you for some recommendations for people in other parts of the world that are trying to decolonize Wikipedia, world language, considering, as you showed, that there are a lot of editors that keep reverting a lot of changes that are really useful for communities, but are reverted by people that are not from that community and that don't understand what is happening when doing that kind of edits. If you have like some recommendations or something that you can tell us to. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, as you have seen, the Kyiv renaming campaign took us like 13, 15 years. The recommendation would be actually to make awareness, even among editors, communities, that it is difficult to do, and Wikipedia is not a source in itself and doesn't set rules. Wikipedia is kind of a mirror. It just shows what already exists. It can't create things. People do use it in that way. I mean, this is a very powerful mirror, maybe even a magical mirror, because once you do get things on Wikipedia, it is influencing, even though it should not be by design, but it is influencing other things. So it is a magical mirror, but still not a, like you do need to work with reality before you are able to change. So, like just perseverance. You can do it. We did it, so you can do it. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for a great presentation. Sort of a reflection and a question. What I was struck by was how important it is not only to work on the language, in this case Ukrainian, that reflects your community and country and so on, but also thinking about English Wikipedia because it is really dominant. So we've had an issue, I mean a number of issues, but one issue is that where we're supporting editors working on minority indigenous languages in the UK, that there's a, that there is contested history. So for example, one example is around the suppression of the Welsh language, and particular techniques that the English used to do that are written in very different ways on the Welsh and the English Wikipedias in a way that's actually caused quite a lot of difficulty for individual editors. I guess I was wondering if you have, any insights or advice as how to enable people to navigate that, particularly thinking about the editors, working in that minority language.
Mm-hmm. So with minority languages, it is really a difficult situation because Wikipedia, as I said, is just reflecting the reality, even though it's like kind of creates reality also in a way, but still. The problem is usually with the minority languages that they are not supported enough to be able to create new knowledge. Because if you do not have universities, you do not have scientists who are working with that language, there would be no terminology. practically, you kind of won't be able to create Wikipedia, to create encyclopedia, because you do need terminology which needs to be established in the sources, which you do not have because you do not have people who create it, like scientists who are recognized to be able to create it. You're going just to have a bunch of Wikipedians who are going to go around and create to the best of their knowledge. That's an issue with all minority languages, which are not state, I mean, they don't have, the languages that don't have an army are going to end up there. And because of that, actually, I think that people who are working on minority languages should really, really concentrate on preserving the language in order to enable its existence on the internet and online. So then you would be able to, at some point, try to invest, like we tried to do, I mean, collectively, the states, institutions, and us, Crimean Tatar, which was in the same, situation and still is. But if you work on lexemes in Wikidata, you're going to record the language. It would be available online. I don't know, Gen AI at some point, maybe if it's not going to be too crazy, can help with that. And, we work on Wikisource, work on, creating the online presence of the language before you're able to actually start creating a real encyclopedia. It doesn't just work in a different way. We have time, that's it. We just wanted to say that we didn't have a lot of time. If you want to talk a bit more about it, find us.